we're off to Bordeaux. More of a river cruise stop than an ocean cruise stop. La Rochelle is probably the most popular ocean port nearby, and it's 2 hours away. We're not going round by electric train. We've chosen to do a cycle tour, but because it's a cycle tour of vineyards. 3 vineyards, 3 wine tastings, and they are electric bikes. So with the electric battery engaged, Jean is up the hill first, followed by Laura. The 2 lads are deciding to try and brave it out without the electric kicked in and are pedalling. I think they used the batteries at some point during the tour. Oh, this wall, by the way, is actually not really a relic of a church. They started to build a new church, then realised they already had one, so they stopped building that other one. Enough of that, we'll come back to it later. Back to the tour. Our bikes have saddlebags, so you can keep things you need, including a rain cover. But as you can see, Matt decided he'd cycle in his t-shirt. It was a bit damp and grizzly. It's October, and as you can see, the grapes have already been picked. And Jean is actually in Saint Emilion.
Let's go ride a bike.
So we did ride the bikes for the whole day. Now, if it rains too much, you can go by coach. And if it rains in the middle of it, they'll get the coach to come and get you. So it's all good. Here's our first stop. This is the Pomerol vineyard, the parcel of land known as Pomerol. And this is the beautiful Chateau Moncets. So the others went off round to the back to park the bikes, and I cycled round pretty quick to try and catch them up with the camera going. And then, as I turned the corner and saw them there in the distance, I hit the gravel and the bike stopped. Good job I was a stuntman. There are a number of bird boxes all around this particular chateau and across the land because they encourage birds to take care of the insects and bees to pollinate the land. They also don't crush their grapes by stamping or pressing. They allow the weight of the grapes to gently crush each other and circulate the mixture in the big vats with the pumps so that the grapes continue to press each other gently. Once it's ready, it's put into these barrels, which are hugely expensive. We worked out by the end of the day the vineyards that were using new oak barrels, and we'll go more into that later, were adding about €2 a bottle to the actual cost of the wine.
We did a zoom on the appellation, but our parcel...
The Bordeaux region tends to specialise in mainly Merlot and Malbec, although Malbec dropped off many years ago when they had a problem, and now they're gradually bringing it back. But it originally came from here. So they're famous for their reds. And that's because they have a blue clay soil, which kind of does something special to the wine. We sampled 4 wines before lunch and then had a bottle of wine with lunch. Our next vineyard was one of the oldest family vineyards in the area, Chateau Balestard-La Tonnelle. I didn't crash this time. And before our tour, we were lucky enough to meet Jacques Capdemourlin.
Alors, vous venez de quel endroit?
Je viens d'Angleterre.
Bonjour. Ça va?
Bonjour, ça va et vous? Je viens d'Angleterre.
Ah, il vient d'Angleterre.
Bonjour, ça va?
Bonjour, il y a du soleil, hein? The sun shines in England.
No. La même chose en anglais.
The same thing today.
It was now time to learn how the vines are pruned, so that one side works one year and another side the other year.
You see, here I have my principal branch arm on this one, on this side, and this produced the biggest part of the production this year. Normally, so when all the leaves will go down, will fall, I should keep one of these parts to do the next, to one of these 2 arms to be the next production, and all of that will disappear, all of that, sad, and this one too.
It could be argued that the oak barrel is as important as the grape. After the vats, the wine is moved into the oak barrel. The oak and how it is toasted is very important. The number of the barrel, the cupra, the maker are listed here, above the sign of the winemaker. But this barrel is toasted by putting a heater inside. And a medium toast or a heavy toast will make the wood taste differently. And the bottom mark on the barrel tells you how much the oak has been toasted. Here is where the barrel is topped up every month to make sure there's no air inside the barrel. Barrels are kept for about 18 months, then it's put back in the vat for a while and then re-barreled. This is the vineyard, a wonderful piece of land. It's raining slightly. On a great day, I'm sure it is fantastic. And there we get to taste these very special wines from a Class A chateau. One wine was a Grand Cru class, the other wine was not. Okay, let's get to Saint Emilion, and this is where they used to do the laundry. Just below the church, the largest church carved out of a single piece of stone in the whole of Europe. But the church upset the locals, and they went round and chopped the heads off all of the statues. So this is why you see the heads missing of all the statues outside the monastery and the church. And even some of the birds have had their heads chopped off. Famous story about Saint Emilion. The ladies who found they couldn't get pregnant or wanted to get pregnant used to visit him in his cave. And after sitting on a special rock, they fell pregnant. I guess that's how to get a sainthood. The town originally began to develop around the bottom, the lower end of the monastery, and then after the 12th century, it expanded to the higher level up above the monastery, and that was the two-tier level of Saint Emilion. The cloisters here and the first part of the church are both 12th century. The painting on the back wall, done much later, this is actually very new. It's 2018. You see it here. Some of the birds have also had their heads chopped off. Some of the statues inside the church have survived. The church itself, 12th century, follows a Romanesque kind of design. The chapel at the end is newer, that's medieval in period. Almost the end of our tour for the day. We leave the church and we're off for our third wine tasting. And by the time we get there, everybody is very happy. See our previous champagne tour.
This is the Mumm champagne house. The most northern vineyards in France are where this wine comes from. They used to use these great big barrels for the wine, but now, since 1990, they use stainless steel. 25 kilometres of these tunnels were carved between 1850 and 1910 to rest this champagne. It rests for 3 years to get the flavour. In a moment, we'll switch the lights on and show you these old bottles of champagne, which date back from the 1890s. They keep them here. Eventually, they lose their bubbles, but they turn into delicious, very valuable bottles of wine. Discovery tour, you get to smell the 3 different flavours which are inside the champagne.
And this is where some of the champagne is drunk. The new Cunard ship.
Fun fact, there are over 2,700 books in this library, so nearly enough for every person on board because the capacity is 3,000. Just outside the Artisan Food Hall is the Panorama Pool Club. So this is the Royal Court Theatre and it has about 835 seats. Beautiful theatre. Just past the pub is the Bright Light Society, where you can take part in an immersive, interactive show.
An evening of burlesque dance and immersive theatre.
Still on deck 2, this is the Queen's Room.
This is a very clever space. This ballroom has a balcony around the top, but as well as being a ballroom, as it's in the round, it can transform to having a club feel.
Moving on along deck 2, there's the chart room. It's quite quiet in here during the day, so it's a great place to come and sit and read. This is the Britannia restaurant where we have our dinner, and look how beautiful it is.
The full 18-minute tour is on the Doris Visits channel. Please hit the subscribe button and share with your friends. And if you have time, I'd love you to read Cruise Ship Heist, the first of our cruise thrillers.